Everyone, welcome to GoTarryn TV. Dr. T, PhD, the Prodigy of Sports Psychology, here for episode number 6 of 6 in the playlist of Exercise is Medicine for Seniors. We're going to be wrapping things up today, and before we do, I'd like to ask everyone out there, if you please make sure to like this video, leave us a comment, and share it with all of your friends and family out there. As you know, the last 6 weeks we've been taking a look at how exercise is medicine for seniors. We've been looking at it from different perspectives, such as eating and exercise and managing stress and socialization and other components and constructs within that realm. And today we're going to wrap things up in a nice tidy bow as we summarize in this final episode, where this past January I was interviewed by one of my great friends, Mr. John Gordon, who also was a longtime personal training client of mine as well. And so this will be a lot of fun. We're going to be talking on his radio program, which was Aging Old Gracefully, BS. And that's what we'll be talking about today, how to actually gracefully age old, or as I like to say, how to age older gracefully. There's a big distinction there, and we'll talk about that here momentarily. So when we come back, again, we'll be talking to my personal training client and buddy, Mr. John Gordon, on his radio show here on how to age older gracefully, and we'll be doing that here in just a few moments. So remember, with GoTarryn Health and Fitness, it's your time, it's your investment, it's your life, and we'll be right back.
While we've got Taryn dialing in here, let's go over the penultimate source of knowledge, the internet. I've searched in preparation for today. Weight training, strength building has these benefits, these 13 benefits. Listen to these: rebuilding muscle, recharging your metabolism, reducing fat, reducing your resting blood pressure. Boy, that is a huge one. Improving blood lipid profiles, enhancing post-coronary performance, resisting diabetes, increasing bone density, decreasing physical discomfort, enhancing mental health, revitalizing muscle cells, reversing physical frailty, and combating cancer. Now, we got Taryn's audio figured out yet? Taryn, are you with us?
I'm here if you can hear me.
Oh, good. Yeah, we got you loud and clear now. Thank you. I'm not sure where the issue was. We're still working out some kinks on our end. But did you hear that list of phenomenal benefits of just weight training?
Yes, certainly, John. That's what it's all about, just like you and I always talk about, and I concur with the list. It speaks for itself. And I mentioned earlier when you were mentioning your wife, Helen, it really is just as young as we feel. That's what it comes down to.
Well, I think so. And Helen, Helen and I both suffer from the same affliction, and that is neither of us have particularly good posture. I work on it, and when I work on it and I think about it, I can hold my shoulders back and stand straight up, but it becomes increasingly more difficult. But I even think weight training, isn't it a known deterrence to osteoporosis? Isn't that another one of the benefits?
Yeah, you got it. Absolutely, John. That's one of the biggest reasons. I always tell all my clients when working out, it's all about injury prevention, but also just preventative maintenance and things like osteoporosis, osteopenia, sarcopenia, you name it. It's a whole long laundry list of reasons why we want to do muscular strength training. In fact, you'll hear a lot of medical doctors saying to a lot of their patients in prescribing more on the side of muscular strength versus cardiovascular endurance. As much as cardiorespiratory training is important, muscular strength training, if not, is more important for heart conditioning, but also just for, like you just mentioned, combating all of those different ailments.
So well, first of all, I want to tell our listeners that Taryn Hoff, he is a personal trainer. He is a lifestyle coach, and he recently received his PhD. He is Dr. Hoff. Um, I have had the pleasure of knowing Taryn for what? How long? 15, 20 years?
Oh gosh, when you say it that way, it makes me feel old now. But you're
Well,
right;
you
it's
do
been
have
a
three
while, and
children, three
it's flown
wonderful
by very
children.
quickly.
Yeah, and then you're going to find you're going to age very rapidly as those rugrats turn into teenagers and break their curfew, and who knows. Anyway, you've got wonderful three precious, absolutely adorable children. I'm so happy for you and Kelly. All right, so your PhD is in what exactly?
Well, basically, in layman's terms, it's exercise psychology. The neat way of putting it, it's performance psychology. And what that is, it entails things like self-determination and intrinsic motivation, reasons why we want to push ourselves. And it's all about that inner grit. And again, just comes down to really mind over matter. It's cliche, but it's unless our brain's working and mentally focused with that mindful health, then that's what pushes us to do things like you're talking about with any types of health and fitness exercising.
So but I've always heard that spot reduction just does not work, and I still, I'm pretty darn fit. I have a resting heart rate in the high 50s, low 60s, which is considered athletic by most standards, and
Hmm.
I feel good about myself from a health standpoint. But I still got this darn persistent fat around my belt line. What the heck can I do about it?
It's funny because that's the one area, especially for us men, us guys, that's the last area because we have the quote apple shape that we're fighting off just, from natural genetic predisposition, gender. But, that last, whatever it is, 5 pounds, and, we all suffer with it. It really comes down to a total health balance of lifestyle. And, you and I have talked about it over the years, but in, terms of not only what we're doing with exercise and diet, and a lot of everything else has to do with it too. You've heard of cortisol, stress reduction, and stress management with belly fat. When we hold a lot of stress in and the way we manage it, that cortisol tends to turn into belly fat, and especially for us men, whereas women might have it more in the back of the arms or the hips and thighs. And it just depends, but everything else. When I say the word total, I mean like total package of living healthfully, but not only sleep management, avoiding bad deterrents like alcohol and, all of the bad food that's out there in terms of saturated fat and sugars and things of that nature, but also avoiding a sedentary lifestyle. And that's why exercise is so key. That's fundamental. That's why you always see me wearing the color green. It goes with my brand, the whole GoTarryn stoplight. Anybody who knows me, it's all about green equals movement, kinetic motion. That's the foundation, but fundamentally, of kinesiology. And that's what I preach to all my clients when I'm personal training them, or all my students when I'm teaching them as well, is that you just have to keep moving. And that is so key. And basically, again, I like to say that, especially to my elderly clients who are in their 80s and 90s and above, is that slow motion is better than no motion.
Well, I I happen to think that America is addicted to sugar, and I think that I
Hmm.
might be one of the leading addicts. I have a sweet tooth that will not quit, and I try and stay away from Dr. Peppers, but I can't. And I've never met a cookie jar or a candy jar that I couldn't find something I liked. And yes, I do have a martini every night, whether I need it or not. And I know that that is the enemy. Now, what does someone do like me? Man up, grow up,
Wow.
become a responsible adult.
There you go. You hit the nail on the head. When you talk about things, it really is food addiction, whether it's sugar addiction, alcohol addiction, you name it. It really comes down to psychologically how we can, really try to put our armor on and just fight that. It's a true battle. It's a war against the bad foods, but also especially in this country of America. So when I'd say psychology, it really delves into your own intrinsic motivation of what works. So let me give you an example that works for me. Let's just use alcohol, for example. If there's wine in my house, it will be drunk no matter what. I mean, I'm going to go upstairs, I'm going to grab the glass of wine, and it's going to feel good, and it's so accessible. what I find my clients, it's just to make sure that it's not accessible as possible. So whether it's telling, whoever does the grocery shopping, make sure you stay away from the, beverage aisle this week. I'm really trying hard to avoid that, or the candy aisle, what have you. What you're trying to do is just avoid those deterrents that are available, and it makes it more challenging. It just creates another barrier, an obstacle from you being able to reach out and grab that sip of alcohol or that candy bar or whatever else is influencing people in bad decisions. Because that's what, any type of psychologist will mention, that the key is to make it a priority list to where you are able to control what your intrinsic motivation is on whatever you're doing in a daily motivate, in terms of exercise too. If it's only going to happen, the hardest step for anybody going to the gym is to step their foot right in the front door. Once they do it, it's all hard work. But again, it's just mind over matter, as I mentioned before. It's just really turning on a key and then flipping the switch in the brain. Cognitively, the cognition is to tell itself, okay, this is how I'm going to control my daily activities, and it could be just as little as that too.
Well, I will tell you, um, I think it's somewhat customary in our culture that we do give people presents for their birthday and for Christmas. And a lot of times those presents are alcohol. They'll be either a nice bottle of tequila or a nice bottle of wine. And our bar at home is extremely well stocked. But one of the reasons that it is well stocked is that as God is my witness, I cannot recall the last time I had a cocktail or a drink or even a glass of wine at home. It's only when I go out. And unfortunately or fortunately, you know, no secret, my wife and I have gotten a little older, and she is a fabulous cook. Her memory's just gotten so bad she can't remember where the kitchen is. So we don't, she doesn't cook anymore. So we go out every night, and there is something that is very alluring and enjoyable. And I tell you, I've got so many irons in the fire. I wake up every morning at 5:30. I'm at my desk by 6 or 6:30, and I don't stop. I literally do not stop until 6:30 or usually about 6:30, and we'll watch the news. And then my intellectual expansion exercise of the day is to watch Wheel of Fortune, and then we'll go out to dinner. And the first thing I do, I cannot wait to get that first sip of that martini. But I do have enough self-discipline that I only have one. If it's a special occasion, I might have two. Not martinis. I'll switch to something less potent. But it is becoming a way of life, and I don't think that's healthy. At least I'm not in denial. And I do think that I need to cut back. Last April, as I think you know, Taryn, and our listeners probably know as well, I had knee replacement. My knees were shot. I have been a runner all my life, and as you know, I love to play tennis, and that all that pounding, for a day or two doesn't hurt a thing. Our bodies recover. But after 40 years, I've run in half marathons, every Peachtree Road race for 10 or 15 years, plus the half marathons, probably 20 total races, maybe more. And it's not the running of the race that hurts you. It's all the preparation leading up to the race. It just beat my body to death. And the place where it presented was my knees. And I was bone on bone, and I was in terrible pain. While I'm thinking about it, in that vein, this is getting a little off the subject, but this is important. When I started developing knee problems and developed arthritis in my knees, my solution was to take unhealthy quantities of ibuprofen. And I had never spent the night in the hospital in my entire life. Never went to the hospital in my life, other than when my brother ran me into a chin-up bar when I was like 10 years old, and I got a gash across my forehead and blood was going everywhere. That's a story for another day. But other than, bruises and stuff like that, I never visited the hospital for illness. But I started to develop this kind of dull pain in my abdomen, and it was persistent and it would not go away. And so finally I decided, well, maybe I better go get this checked. I went to the doc in the box, who is my concierge doctor. And, all these people down here in Palm Beach, they've got concierge. Well, darling, who's your concierge doctor? Well, my concierge doctor is Med now, right up the street here, the doc in the box. But so I went to the doc in the box, and they did an evaluation. And this doctor was a very nice guy. You could tell he was incredibly smart. He was Indian. And he said, well, Mr. Gorton, I've evaluated you. You have a low-grade temperature and a persistent pain in your abdomen. I'm worried about you. I want you to go immediately to the emergency room at Piedmont. I said, I am not going to any emergency room at Piedmont. Just give me a shot in the butt and send me home. I'm going to be fine. I'm in good health. He said, no, mister Gordon. You've got this fever, a low-grade fever, and you've got this persistent pain in your abdomen. I am worried about you. I want you to go to the emergency room immediately. So I went to the emergency room on doctor's orders, and I'm telling you, I really don't like hospitals. I really don't like doctors. I'm kind of hypercritical of the medical profession. I've seen too many people go to the hospital to get well, and they never come home again. Look, I'm being stupid, okay? But I'm leading to a point. Don't get too upset yet. But I went into this hospital. They were the most competent people I have ever encountered in my life. Once they found out that I had this low-grade temperature and this pain in my abdomen, they skipped all the admissions protocols. They got me right into a room. The doctor came in. They gave me an MRI. They took blood. They did their workup. Within 35 minutes, I had a diagnosis, and I had diverticulitis, which I didn't. I had heard of. I had no idea what it was. So, of course, what's the first thing I did? I went again to the penultimate source of knowledge, the internet, and I typed in diverticulitis. And guess what? One of the causes of diverticulitis is. It's not a trick question.
Taking the ibuprofen, the
exactly.
Non-steroidal
It is exceeding the daily recommended amount of ibuprofen. So I was guilty as charged, and I was doing it because I wanted to be able to continue to run and walk and play tennis. And I crossed the line. I over medicated with ibuprofen, and I told the doctor at the hospital. He said, "I'm going to admit you." He said, "You need to spend the night in the hospital for a couple of nights, and let's monitor you and make sure you're okay." I said, "Doctor, I feel fine. I've got a loving wife at home. She'll take good care of me. Just give me a prescription, give me a pill. Let's make it go away and let me go home." And he was like, "No way. Absolutely not." He said, "Now I'll discharge you. What do they call it? AMA, discharge against medical advice. But you need to go to and spend the night in the hospital." And I'm telling you, Taryn, it was 3 of the longest days of my life. I thought I was going to go out of my mind. I felt fine. I wasn't in any pain. I wanted to get back and out and go do something, but no, I was sitting there, constrained to watching CNN. I don't think they had Fox at Piedmont Hospital. That would be one of my major complaints. Maybe they do now, but I couldn't find anything on TV to watch. I was just going crazy. But I tell you what, it was a wake-up call, and it made me realize that you better, by gosh, follow the directions on the bottles and not exceed what the directions tell you, because there are consequences that can occur. So I learned a lesson the hard way that way, but I've now had knee replacement. I'm feeling great, and I'm back out playing tennis. And I'm just so excited to kind of feel like I got my life back.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, thank God.
So yeah, go ahead.
any type of non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs like that, we really have to be careful, especially with the liver. I'm sure you were told all of this, but the vital organs and that initial Indian doctor, kudos to him. He possibly could have saved your life by literally like telling you need to go, you know?
Well,
So I'm,
the
wow.
the problem, as I understand it, is, and I know less about medicine than I know about football. We had John Fredericks on earlier, and he was giving us the rundown on Belichick and Nick Saban and the NFL, and it's just
Hmm.
fascinating to listen to talk about football. I can't hold my ground on talking football. I can talk about exercise. I can talk about politics. And I can talk about child rearing. Not that I have written any books about it, but I feel like I've had a fair degree of success in raising three
Hmm.
wonderful boys I'm so proud of and love so much.
Hmm.
But this doctor said, I said, I'm just going to go home. He said, no, you can't do that. He said,
Hmm.
what the ibuprofen does is causes teeny little micro size abrasions in your intestines, and
Wow.
it then poisons the rest of your body as it releases this into your body, which your intestines are supposed to protect against. And so he said,
Mm.
you know, the real problem with diverticulitis is if you don't jump on it and treat it medically and take the step backwards so you can take two forward, your intestine could rupture, and then you're in emergency surgery, having your
Oh yeah.
stomach cut open and having your intestines pumped out. We've got 2,600 people
Wow.
with us on Getter Live right now. We're talking to Dr. Taryn Hoff about the advantages of exercise and particularly strength training. Taryn, you've got a pretty wide range of ages of people that you work with, don't you?
Hmm. Certainly. And, you know, I mentioned this earlier when we were talking, but, you know, again, philosophically, I'm very much on the whole component of really preaching the mindful health, the psychological component to all of my clients, whether they be, say, 12, 13, 14 years old, all the way to my, like in terms of oldest client, 96 years old, and all ages in between. And it's all about, again, just internalizing that motivation to whatever focus of goals and objectives and benchmarks that they set. And everyone's different, of course, individualized. That's why they call it personal training. It's not cookie cutter. Everybody's going to have some type of different goals and you know, different types of achievements that they want to reach when they're working out or just feeling better. And again, as I mentioned, in the mental component, I strongly believe it all comes from the mind, and that's why when I went to graduate school and I attained the performance psychology degree, I wanted to go out and see what is it up here that really helps people get over that hump. Why do so many people get frustrated? Why do so many individuals that I see over the years, they start the program strong and hard and they're ready and full on in, and then all of a sudden you just get ghosted. You don't see them anymore. And, you know, not to go off a total tangent, but I just did a speaking engagement just yesterday at one of the senior services here in Atlanta, Georgia. And specifically, it was about how socializing, social engagement has really declined in the last 3 or 4 years. And when you do empirical research studies and data that I've looked at for this presentation, and just recent studies in the last 3 or 4 years, and this won't surprise anybody at all, but since 2020, the responsibilities of people wanting to go out and engage and go to social activities and parties and stuff just drastically went down because of you know, COVID-19, the pandemic. Social distancing went up, quarantining, isolation, and in terms of, you know, you talk about correlational research in the data had shown that suicide went up, anxiety, depression, mental disorders, and all types of diseases. All the things of that nature just went and just blew up crazily, and that adversely affected everybody's both mental as well as physical components of their lifestyle. And unfortunately, that's what we've seen. But the good news is we're back on the upswing, that there is hope that we can change that. And we see the numbers getting a little better now. That's what the data has shown. But we've got a ways to go because we're certainly not there before 2020. In terms of if you compare 2024 versus 2019 right now, before COVID started, we're still a little worse off of some of those categories that I just listed off there.
You know, the hardest part for me of any form of exercise,
Hmm.
if it's running, it's getting from my front door to the street. If it's weight training, it's getting from my house to the gym. Once I'm there, there's an energy. There are people around. The scenery sometimes is very enjoyable to associate and be around. Very attractive people who are taking care of themselves. It's really an enjoyable experience, but there's something mentally that's very hard to get out of the chair, put on my exercise clothes, and get to the gym. Do you have any strategies? Do you have any ideas of how you motivate yourself to get off the couch and get going?
Yeah, certainly. So that's a great, fully loaded question, and everybody, including myself, can really relate to that because that is the hardest part. I agree with you, is just getting it started, and where do we begin? And so, for example, you had mentioned earlier in the call how I had graduated with my PhD in exercise psychology a couple of years ago. And so one of the theoretical foundations that was grounded in my dissertation that I had completed and I worked on for 3 years is called self-determination theory. There's 3 components of this theory, and they are autonomy, competence, and relatedness. Now,
hang on 1 second. Repeat
sure.
those a little bit more slowly.
Okay. Yeah, I apologize.
That's all right.
Yeah. So, okay, if you look up, and there's a website called selfdeterminationtheory.org, and this was founded and created by 2 well-established psychologists, one being Richard Ryan, the other being Edward Deci, and they've been the founders and fathers, basically, of what's called self-determination theory, and the 3 components.
Taryn, I don't mean to interrupt you. We're at 1:30. We got a hard break. We're going to be right back on the John Fredericks Media Network after these commercial words. Dr. Taryn Hoff, an exercise sports psychologist, is with us. Fascinating stuff. We'll be right back on Growing Old Gracefully, BS. And we are back, broadcasting live from West Palm Beach, Florida today on Growing Old Gracefully, BS. And we're joined by sports psychologist Dr. Taryn Hoff, who has been a good friend of mine for probably 2 decades. And he has provided a lot of good coaching and help to me to maintain my fitness. And he's a very encouraging, wonderfully nice guy. We were talking just before the break about autonomy. What's the next? Complacency and relatedness?
Competence.
Competence. Got you. I can't read my own handwriting. All right. Well, take us through those.
Yeah. So, self-determination theory, which I used for my dissertation study, the reason why I use that is because of how fundamentally helpful it is with my world of personal training. So, when you take 1/3 of the components being autonomy, these are your basic needs in terms of function, everyday life. So for all of us, we have some level of autonomy or independence that, a skill set needed. Like no one's going to help us get up and brush our teeth, make our bed, put on our clothes, and get ready to tackle the day, so to speak. Competence, especially in personal training, in my world, is learning the skills and mastering things like the form and preventing injury and ensuring that whatever type of mode of exercise that we're doing, we feel comfortable doing to full optimization. Now, the 3rd component is relatedness, and that is, in my opinion, the key to really achieving success. You mentioned it right before we went to break there, John, about when you go to the fitness center, for example, and you see other people working out, you get motivated with that, what's called relatedness, that 3rd component. Relationship is also a synonym for that word when psychologically we're speaking about that basic need that we need. And again, as I mentioned earlier in the call yesterday, I did a presentation on exactly this, on relationship building, the importance of social engagement, and why that helps not only our physical fitness, our mindful health, but also other components like our mental wellness and our emotions, our cognition, cognitively as we live and age gracefully later on in life. And I don't like to say gracefully old, but rather gracefully older, because as I mentioned, yes, we're getting older every day, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we're old, so to speak. My 96-year-old client is one of the youngest people I know because not only physically of what she does, but also the way she feels. As I mentioned, we're as young as we feel, and that is key. Now, as I mentioned too, when we went on break there, John, I do have a peer-reviewed article that was published. I'm very proud of this last year in the Journal of Performance Psychology. And what this was talking about that component of relatedness building, that relatedness skill of developing success. And so I encourage, by the way, that is completely free, available on my website. If anybody wants to check it out, and they can just Google search that or what have you.
Yeah.
And there's a
Do you
direct
have a link
hyperlink
for
there.
it? We'll publish it right here if you do.
Yeah, why not? Sure. So if they go to www.drtphd.com, and it's just the letters, it's drtphd.com, and they will see a link to that article that I was just talking about from the Journal of Performance Psychology. And the title of it's called Relatedness Factors Defining a Mutual Personal Training Client Relationship to Realize Success. It's a qualitative study, and they will see that in full detail. And in my world of academic achievements, that is the number one greatest accomplishment that I've worked on. Being able to be published in a peer-reviewed journal such as this, and that's basically what I worked on for 3 years. So they'll see that and that empirical data and research published right there. And in my opinion, that goes to prove how important that is in terms of why exercise and what we're talking about. This ties everything beautifully together in summary of why we do this in the first place. And it truly is our health. The whole joke of why you think I'm doing this for my health. Yeah, we really are. And that's what fundamentally, again, this comes down to. So that article is so cool, and it's available www.drtphd.com that they can get a copy of that as well.
All right. When we will publish it here on our streaming services, both Getter.com, where you can come and listen to us every Saturday from 12 to 2. Hit the live button and look for The Truth with John Gordon. It's right there on the top banner. And right now we got 3,000 people that we've gotten up to just on Getter, as well as our radio network in Atlanta, Richmond, Norfolk, Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, and our latest affiliate in Nashville. So we welcome our listeners today. You can also call and ask Dr. T your questions about good health and weight training by calling 804-778-8888. Michael is right there in the studio waiting to take your call. We got Gonzalo and Quentin, our associate producers here in West Palm Beach, who will patch you right on through. I'd love to have you call us and join us. So, Taryn, how do you think is the best way, though, to motivate yourself to get out and get going? I understand the dynamics now, autonomy, competency, and relatedness, but how do you find the inner strength to get going? What do you recommend?
Mm-hmm. We're all so different, John. And, some of us need for example, here's one thing that we could do. And this is not a sales pitch, but some of us might hire a personal trainer. I know that you're a big advocate, probably one of the greatest promoters of personal training, because I think you've had a trainer since you were born, basically. And, really, I think that is so key, because whether or not we feel like we have the autonomy and the competence to work out, again, as I mentioned, that relatedness is so important. When you have somebody pushing you and really coaching you along, I can't say enough how much how that helps. Here's another reason why, too. I have, and if there's any other personal trainers listening out there, I know they can relate to this. They hear this all the time because I do on a daily basis. I can't tell you one of the most common things I always hear from my clients when we're about to work out, and they look like they're just kind of disheveled and dejected and tired, and oh gosh. And the first thing they'll say is, if we didn't have this appointment, I would not be here. And comes down to accountability. It really is, because when you have somebody there, it's hard enough to let yourself down, right? Say, oh gosh, I feel like a worthless bum. I'm not going to go work out. I'm just going to sleep in today. Okay, that's one thing. But when you are letting someone else down and in some ways disrespecting their time by not showing up, that hurts, that stings. And some people are okay with that. Some people might say, well, I'll eat the cost, I'll pay for this. I know it's a wasted session, but I'd rather stay here rather than work out. That's fine. But really we have to do what's called that self-reflection, that introspection, and just look into ourselves deeply and say, what is my value? What is worth it to me? And if we don't have personal training, some of us might not be able to budget that. That's no problem at all. The great thing about things with health and fitness, a lot of things are not only affordable but free. In fact, for example, there's a program known as Silver Sneakers. It's a nationwide program that most fitness centers, big commercial gyms, will employ in terms of having a free gym membership, and it's involved with people's senior Medicare supplemental Part B care on their program. Again, it's called Silver Sneakers. I encourage people to Google that. Their website, silversneakers.com, where you can go to any gym that has that and offering as a free gym membership. You get free coaching at some fitness centers as well, too. There's virtually free, tons of information, both on YouTube as well as many other websites out there that have platforms to where you can literally go in the world of chat GPT and artificial intelligence, basically type in like a workout plan, develop a key exercise plan, simple 10 exercises. What are they? And it'll spit that information out for you. So you have a lot of resources and really no excuses not to, because there's so much. We are so lucky and privileged to live in this country where at the end of a fingertip with an iPhone or a MacBook or whatever you're using, be able to type in what we're searching for and be able to have it right at our disposal. So again, as I mentioned, there's no excuse. The excuses are limited and the resources are phenomenal. There's an abundance of ways that we can better ourselves. And really what it comes down to it is how much do we want it? Like anything else in life, our goals. If we want to do something and we want to get those goals and what we like to call SMART goals, specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely, it comes down to, what is that worth to us? And if it is worth what we want, then we'll do it. And ultimately, it is our own decision and our own accountability at the end of the day.
What's so amazing to me is that when I've had a really lousy day and I just feel so tired, the thought of going to the gym is just so difficult for me to even entertain. And then I'll pick myself up, force myself to go, mainly usually because I've got you or another trainer sitting there waiting on me. I know I'm going to pay if I don't go. And then at the end of the session, I have so much energy. It's just incredible what a difference it can make in the way that you feel.
No question about it. Not only personal training, but some people are motivated with group exercise classes. They can go there. Some people like to do outdoor running clubs or walking programs with their friends. There's so many variety of different social clubs that are available. And again, a lot of them are free or very minimal cost. And I encourage people to go out there and do that, because the more that they engage and they figure out what they want. I'll give you an example, using myself as a clear example. I never fell in love with outdoor trails and power walking until March 2020, right at the start of COVID, when all the gyms in my area in Atlanta closed down. I was like, okay, what am I going to do now? I just started going on an outdoor power walk, and that was my routine because I wasn't training that many clients at that time, and the fitness centers were closed. So what else am I going to do? And I absolutely got hooked. I got addicted. And in fact, that's a good addiction. I think to this day, I will not miss a day where I don't go outside, even though here where I'm recording in Atlanta, we're in the 30s as I'm talking right now. I'll still go out there. I'll bundle up and I'll just feel better because I'm, again, not so much physically, but really up here when I'm working out therapeutically, I just feel so much better in my outdoor nature walks. I can't tell you how much stress relief that helps with. And it's probably the same endorphin high that you're talking about when you're feeling better, when you're working out, in your own exercise workouts.
You should connect up with my youngest son, Grayson, who goes to the river every morning at
There you go.
5:30 or 6 o'clock religiously. And he says, Dad,
Absolutely.
this is my time. He
Mm-hmm.
meditates. There's a beautiful spot on the
Yep.
Chattahoochee way high above the river that you can
Perfect.
look down and see for miles. It is really just spectacular. And it is invigorating and inspirational to him to have that time to himself, be out there with his dog and enjoying nature as you described is just a great way for him to start his day. To your point, don't you find that when you get into an exercise routine that a lot of other lifestyle habits come into focus, and it's kind of a snowball in a positive direction.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more because, truly exercise is medicine. When people are having any types of problems in their life, I don't care what it is, it can't hurt, that's for sure. And not only that, on top of that, it does help. There's no question about it because of all of you listed them right before I came on, physiologically and psychologically. What happens is that blood pressure goes down, heart rate gets improved, those endorphins, as I mentioned, and everything just gets increased with terms of just feeling better, adrenaline rush, just feeling like your body is optimal at that point because other things like triglycerides, sugars, and cholesterol decrease, and everything in terms of revolving around the component of exercise. I can't stress enough being medicine. And to the medical doctors' credits today, they are prescribing exercise as medicine to their patients when they're seeing them. And so that's what we're seeing right now. And as I mentioned earlier, a few minutes ago, regarding the pandemic, one of the best ways to combat any types of the stress and anxiety and depression that we were getting as a society in whole is to go to the gym or go outside like your son Grayson or what have you. Just do the exercising and the physical fitness, and we will feel so much better.
We're talking to Dr. Taryn Hoff. He is a PhD in exercise psychology. He's been a friend of mine for 2 decades and has been a positive influence in my life and my lifestyle. And so I wanted to share Dr. T's knowledge with our listeners today. We've got 3,500 people interacting with us on Getter right now. If you want to post a question there, I'll relay it on to Dr. Taryn, or you can call us at 804-778-8888 and ask the question directly to him. So I really did relate to your suggestion about going onto YouTube. That place is just phenomenal. You can learn to drive a boat, fly a plane, repair a gasoline engine, and prescribe your own exercise regimen just on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
So you send your clients there. Do you have a website? Do you have a channel that people can come and visit?
So yeah, absolutely. I would love people to check my website out if they get the opportunity. My brand, it's known as GoTarryn Health and Fitness. So it's basically the word go, G-O, and then my first name, Tarryn, T-A-R-R-Y-N. So if they go to GoTarryn.com, they will learn all about what GoTarryn Health and Fitness is and why I tell everybody that it's your time, it's your investment, it's your life. That's my big three mantra, my philosophy when I'm training with clients. And as I mentioned earlier, too, when I'm teaching my students, 2 different universities that I teach at, and I'm letting them know teaching and training, they're not that dissimilar in terms of, aligning goals and what objectives they need to be doing. So whenever they have problems or issues and are trying to figure out how to overcome an obstacle, just like in exercise, I'll tell my students the same thing is like, look, the answers are out there. We just need to research it. Just like to my clients, there is a way for us to lose the weight. For us guys, if we have that last 5 pounds of belly fat, how do we get rid of it? We can do it. We have the tools to be able to do so. So again, I invite everybody to check my website. As I mentioned, my doctoral journal that was published in the peer-reviewed Journal of Performance Psychology article is there. And it's free. So I'd love to engage with people and network with great folks out there listening.
So how do you prescribe or get a program together for someone? If you have a new client that comes in, how do you approach a new client and help establish goals?
Well, the first step, I believe, of a great personal trainer is to listen, to figure out and say, okay, can't just take the layman person that comes in and just tell them, here's what you really should be doing. You need to eat less and exercise more. I mean, that's easy for any, trainer to do. But really, when we listen to those goals, everybody's going to be different. I've had clients come in and ask me, well, this is what I'd really like to do, and here's why. And when I retain that information and engage in active listening, then I can go ahead and reciprocate with, okay, so you're saying that you want to achieve X, Y, and so forth. This is the way that we're going to approach that because again, not to make any judgments or prejudices, but you can see somebody who looks morbidly obese walk in, and I've had this happen, and losing weight is not their goal, number one goal, at least for priorities in their mind. And that's important to know, because I don't want to sit there and preach at them and tell them, hey, you look like you've got so much weight to lose. It's not about that in personal training. Every good personal trainer will mention that being a good listener is the number one priority of a trainer to, actively engage in, and then from there prescribe the program appropriately to whatever respective client that they're meeting for the very first time.
So what are the indicia that you look for to determine someone's level of fitness and health?
Mm-hmm. Good question. So, whenever I see someone new, I like to do a baseline fitness assessment, and that basically entails what currently is their muscular endurance, what is their body composition, their body fat percentage. We're looking at their weight, their height proportion, how their endurance is. We'll do a measure of different testing. We'll do girth circumference measurements, basically setting up that starting line of this is where we're at today. Now, what are our benchmarks from there? What fitness goals do we have from here? What can we do realistically in 3 months, let's say? And I like to make those goals together with that client, because then what they could see is in exercise, just like anything else, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. This is not a diet, it's a lifestyle. I like to use words that are more permanent versus temporary words like that to say, look, this is the way you're going to live with or without seeing a personal trainer for the rest of your life. You're going to live better, healthier, longer, pain-free. And the way to do that is, and then develop the program and go from there with them.
So the benefits of, I think one thing, and before we don't have too much time remaining here, Taryn, and I really appreciate your taking time away from your family and on a Saturday, giving your time to us and all of our listeners.
My pleasure.
So you think about weight training. I think that typically our minds go to some big muscle-bound jock in the gym lifting 300-pound dumbbells or barbells or whatever. That's not really what we're talking about, is it?
Correct. Right. To some, there might be, but if I had to wrap this up real short and sweet and just, I like to keep things simple. So for anybody listening out there and they're like, gosh, where do I start? I'm a novice. This is all new to me. This is what I like to do in breaking it down twofold. One, let's look at nutrition and the three big things that they want to look at. There's tons of diets out there and some of them are great and whatever. But what the common denominator of a great way of eating is you look at three components: quality, quantity, and timing. And it's basically quality, how we eat; quantity, how much are we eating; and timeliness, when are we eating it. If we start working on those three nutrition-wise, we're going to do so much better. And I encourage people to look at them as levers and pull on all three of those levers as much as possible. If you look at the exercise lifestyle, I like to break it down into an acronym known as FIT, F-I-T, and an extra T, two T's, FIT. Frequency, intensity, time, and type of exercise that they're doing. So again, whatever type of exercise they're going to be doing, that's the best exercise that they should do. In your case with running, John, you looked at the other three letters there: the frequency, how much you were doing; intensity, how hard you're doing it; and time, how long of a duration. So if I can encourage anybody out there listening to take those two big primary components of what we're eating and also how much we're exercising, I'm going to encourage everybody out there with a new year of 2024, a fresh, clean slate. Just try to add one better thing that you can do to better yourself and your life on those components there.
And that's Dr. Taryn Hoff, PhD, physical exercise psychologist. It will make you live longer. It will allow you to live happier. And that's it for Growing Old Gracefully BS this Saturday. And I'm going to leave our listeners and you, Taryn, with my favorite singer-songwriter, John Mayer. And I want you to listen to the lyrics of this song. It's right on point, and they are so darn good. John Mayer, Can't Stop This Train. You're listening to Growing Old Gracefully. I'm John Gordon. We'll be back next Saturday with another edition at high noon on the John Friedrichs Media Network. Goodbye, everybody.